Hey guys, welcome back to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. Today I'm chatting with Erin Washington, who is making waves in the wellness industry by changing the way we think about food and fitness. Erin is paving the way for a more balanced lifestyle through her podcast and book, Squats and Margaritas. Erin, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to be chatting with you.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay. So, okay, talk to us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your background. I know you're a former athlete, so let's just hear a little bit from you before I dive into our questions.
Yeah, I grew up in Ohio. I was the oldest of four girls, and I started playing soccer when I was 4 and became completely obsessed with it. Like, it was my worth, it was my value. I put everything into it. And I think being that firstborn perfectionist, like, it was just my personality. I was very driven. My 3 younger sisters all played soccer and they just weren't as obsessive as I was. So I went to I went into high school and I started as a freshman playing varsity, and we had great seasons every year. And we back-to-back state champions. I was the captain my junior and senior year. But my eating disorders kind of started in high school when I was playing soccer. And looking back on it now, I think I equated thin with like better for soccer because it was like fit and I could run faster. So probably my sophomore year, it was about my sophomore year. I started my period late, so I started gaining weight. So I came in super skinny. And then my sophomore year started drastically reducing my calories so I could lose the weight. And I ended up I got super skinny, and my coach actually called it out and was like, your crosses aren't strong anymore. You lost all the strength in your legs. So I was like, this is affecting soccer. So I had to eat, but it was then when my eating disorder evolved into exercise bulimia, where you basically jot down every calorie you eat and then subsequently go and work out the same amount of calories to cancel it out. It's not how it works, but that's what I did for the rest of my high school career. And then I ended up getting a Division I college soccer scholarship. And I was not used to not playing. Like, I never came off the field. Like I said, I was captain. We were state champions back-to-back years. So I'm thinking, like, finally, like, this is my only value and worth. I'm about to play college soccer. And I came in and I won all the fitness tests and I was like, let's go. And the season started and I didn't play. And I didn't know what to do with that. And I'm very much like, things have to be fair. I don't like when things aren't fair. And I felt like I was contributing in practice. I came in great shape and I deserved to play. And midway through my sophomore year, kind of on a whim, I decided that it wasn't fair and I quit. And looking back on it now, like, I didn't realize at that point how much soccer meant to me and that it was my identity. And so it was just gone. And I still lived in the soccer house. So my teammates and roommates would go to away games or go to practice, and I would just sit there. I fell into complete depression. And I think initially I found bulimia as a way to kind of, what I thought, get rid of extra weight. I was no longer in a Division I strength and conditioning program, but I was still eating the same. So I gained, and bulimia became something that I would not be able to get a grasp on for about 10 years. And it took over my life. It was all I thought about, like, the next time I could binge and purge. And it was something that I could control at a time where it felt like everything else was out of control. So I dealt with bulimia. I hid it from 6 other girls that I lived with. And I dealt with that for about 10 years. After college, I went to DC and I met my husband and kind of came out of the abusing my body with eating disorder mess. But at that point, I was still severely restricting my calories and over exercising. And I was like, well, I'm not sick anymore, but I still wasn't living like I live today. And at about 37, after having both of my kids, and we can get into how it happened, I found this lifestyle balance where I enjoy my life. I'm not miserable and seeking this physical ideal that I never found when I was restricting. And I ended up in my best physical body now at 40. And I wanted to share that message with the woman that was me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, barely eating, only doing cardio, that there's a different way. And I shared my story to show I've been through all of it. I've tried all the fad diets. This balanced lifestyle is sustainable. and I wrote a book, and now I have a podcast, and I'm just trying to spread the message of squats and margaritas and balance and enjoying your life.
Yeah. And I definitely have a lot of questions about your story and kind of specifically like what that aha moment was and really what kind of helped you turn around to this more balanced lifestyle. But, you talk about the podcast, Squats and Margaritas, which by the way are like two of my favorite things. So I
I
love
knew I
it.
liked you.
What's the messaging behind that, and what, I know you want to share your message, but it's like, why was that the name? And what are the messages that you want to really get out on that podcast?
Yeah. Well, the name came, my Instagram name. I was just sitting in my kitchen in our old house in Virginia, and I was like, it's so funny. All I did before was cardio, I barely ate, and I was 20 pounds heavier. And I'm like, now it's just like squats and margaritas. And I found my physical ideal, and I was like, oh, and I like went to Instagram and nobody had it. I was like, that just became like my Instagram name, never thinking I wasn't going to write a book. It was just this page to inspire women, live life with balance. And my message, squats and margaritas, is enjoying your life. Like I still work out, not 7 days a week. And Morgan, like there was a time in my life you could not pay me to take one day off. It was 7 days a week, mostly cardio.
Yeah.
I always just wanted to see the calories going down on the machine. Like I just needed to burn. I was never messing with weights, restricting my calories. And I was just like miserable. And now it's like I eat what I want in moderation and I enjoy my life. I'm not living in that state of stress anymore and holding on to all that cortisol. I just am mindful. I listen to my body. I have something that I need to have every day. And it's usually something sweet with my coffee in the morning, or I'll have a margarita or a glass of wine every day. And it makes it less enticing. So there's not that need on like Friday night to have 4 glasses of wine, because it's just something that's a part of my life. And this worked for me. So I had to share it with the woman that was doing things like I did before. And the podcast was nothing I ever thought of even doing. Like the podcast kind of found me. And during the pandemic, I was just going live, mainly just like complaining about how hard it was. I had a 2 and a 4-year-old, and I'm like, the gyms are closed, the playgrounds are closed. Like, what are we supposed to do with our kids? I would just go live on Instagram, and I started making it like a little talk show. I would ask other moms to come on live and share like best practices. I'm like, what are you doing with your kids? Scavenger hunt, take them outside. It's like, find a stop sign, find a pine cone. I'm like, yes, this is good. Next week, pour a cocktail. We'll do this again. It was like to entertain moms, and because we couldn't like go to a happy hour at that time, something to look forward to and just like fun. And then I kept seeing like more and more people were joining. So then I was like trying to up my game with guests. So I asked these like prominent mom bloggers to go live, and they said yes. And I asked a couple of Real Housewives to go live, and they said yes. And it became like this fun thing, but it was I never had any other thoughts for it. Yeah. And unbeknownst to me, a program director at the biggest radio station in Washington, D.C. was watching me every week, and one day called and offered me a show on Podcast One. And I never, if it was an audition, if they said Podcast One wants a new host, I never would have even considered it. But it was like what was for me found me when I was just putting myself out into the world authentically.
Yeah. Being you, being exactly who you wanted to be. Well, and I think that's like, it's such an important message, because when you are yourself and when you can share your past, even though it's things that you maybe sometimes aren't as proud of, or it took you a while to probably finally admit all these things, right? The story you just told took you probably years to even be able to say it, and I can relate to that similarly. Like 10 years ago was when I was in my like darkest time of body dysmorphia, right? Like I hated what I saw in the mirror, and I was much like you. I loved working out. I was also a 4-year varsity soccer player. I played basketball.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't go to college because I had had enough at that point, but exercise was never punishment for me, but food was punishment for me. And I can remember like the Garmin watches, right, that you would wear on your wrist, and which is why I don't wear like anything anymore, because I had such a bad relationship with looking at that watch and looking at the calorie burn, and then tracking my food and making sure that I was always in a deficit. And I mean, to the point where I would go do double days, and, I would go run if I didn't get the calorie burn. And so I did that for a period of time. And then it was like, my breakthrough was, okay, I'm going to lead women and I don't even like myself right now, you know? And
Yeah.
so, I would love to hear like, what was your breakthrough moment where you were like, no, no more. Like, cause when I had mine, it was pre-kids. And I was like, this is not the mom I want to be. This is not the community leader I want to be. And this is just not how I want to show up in my life. And so I'm thankful for those moments because it helped me shape the Burn Boot Camp community and what I wanted that to be and not,
Yes.
and what I didn't want it to be, you know, and it was something
Yes.
that you have to go through to get to where you're at now. Right. And so there's lessons in everything, but what was your breakthrough in that aha to say, I can't live like this anymore?
I wish it was like a more profound time that I was just like, no more. I do
Yeah.
remember a very vividly, probably like my rock bottom moment where I was out in a legitimate snowstorm, like snowstorm in DC, and I'm walking to the convenience store to get all the processed food that I could binge on. And I remember just like stopping and I'm like looking around, like, you're the only person out on these streets right now. It was like I was like a crack addict, like out to get a fix. And I was
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? And I was so like present in my body, but I
Mm.
didn't stop. That was
Yeah.
probably like the rock bottom moment. But this isn't like a scientific way to do it, but I can tell you as a firstborn perfectionist obsessive personality,
Mm-hmm.
when you put all of your obsession into one thing, which for me was like my body image, my dieting and exercise. And it's the only thing you focus on. Like there's not much room for anything else. When I
Yeah.
met my husband, he was in the prime of his career, just came off a Pro Bowl season in the NFL. And I had no self worth and couldn't understand why he would be with me. I was like, he could
Mhm.
be with anyone he wanted. And I was always like, there has to be something, there's got to be somebody else. Like, there's no way he's just with me. So I became obsessive about our relationship, like to the point, Morgan, I would put his name in this like website that I found where like groupies would like go talk about like times with players. So I every day make sure he's
Oh,
not cheating on me. If he was in the shower, I was in his phone. And I'm telling you, my obsession with my relationship got so big that I didn't have time for anything else. My
yeah.
eating disorder kind of fell away when we initially started dating. And everybody's like, oh, right, when you met your husband and then you stopped. I'm like, yeah. But it wasn't like this decision. I
Yeah.
think I didn't have time for that anymore. I had to make sure this guy was not cheating
Yeah.
on me. And I
Yeah.
wanted to say something else, what you were saying about how it took me a long time to say that
Mm-hmm.
about my past. I was never going to tell anyone about
Yeah.
that. I was going to my grave with my bulimia. Like that's like the most shameful part of it. I mean, I did a lot of things, but like the bulimia was the most shameful. And I haven't done it in 17 years. And I was like, at least nobody found out about that. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to write a book and help women and show them, like, if you lift more and you eat more often. And
Yeah.
my writing coach was like, she's like, are you a trainer? Are you a nutritionist? And I'm like, no. But I've figured out a way and I've tried all these things. And she's like, if there was some story of like how you got to this point,
Yeah.
then you need to share it. And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with that. And she kept pushing me. And I finally wrote it. And I didn't even send it back to her yet. And when I wrote it, like I was depressed, I was bulimic. I wrote the words out. It was like instantly I felt lighter
Mm.
and I had let it out to the universe. And this is to say to anyone that is carrying something that you have shame
Mm-hmm.
about, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
something that happened to you. And it doesn't matter how long ago it happened or that it's not happening anymore. If you've
Yeah.
never acknowledged it to the universe, you're still carrying it.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to tell another person. Like I tell everybody, but it's like, write it down,
Mm-hmm.
somehow acknowledge it, and you release it. And then you
Yeah.
can move on with the
Yeah.
rest of your life. So
Yeah.
anybody that's kind of, it's like jarring that I'm just so open about my bulimia now. Absolutely not. Like for a while, I wouldn't even say anything about it, but it's just so freeing. Like it has no hold on me anymore. And again,
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it, but I never said it. So it's
Yeah.
like, if you, whatever you're holding shame about, just write it, tell someone, and release its grip.
Yeah. And I think that goes for, it doesn't matter how long that was part of your story. Because I think for me, this, it probably went longer than I'm like really remembering. But for me, it was like a 8-month period where I just got really deep and it
Yeah.
wasn't like 10 years. So for a
Right.
while I was like, no, this isn't even part of my story. But like as you grow
Yeah.
up and then as you like reflect back on these things, you're like, no, that was that like that really shaped my next 10 years because
Yes.
it just showed me who I want to be and how I want to show up. And so I think also like never putting limitations on your story because we all have something deep inside of us that, is that we're carrying. And if we don't get
Yes.
it out and kind of just own it and move on, you don't need to
Yes.
make it your bio and your storyline, but
Right.
um, if you're
Yes.
carrying it still, then you haven't been able to actually learn from like the things that happen in those times.
Exactly. And people think, well, I don't do that anymore. I did. I was like, I don't throw up my food. I'm healed. And
Yeah.
like, it's fine. I'm going to write a book and help the women. But like through therapy and like self work, it's like, why were you doing that? You just learn so much about yourself. And now I've kind of like just completely, I feel sorry for that girl. Like I can look at it. It's not a part of me like now. I've
Hmm.
left it behind. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a part of me that shaped me. And had I not gone through it, I wouldn't have found what I'm doing today and inspiring women. And I know that I went through it to find this purpose. And I've connected with so many women that are like, you're the only person I've ever told about my bulimia or my anorexia. I was anorexic, bulimic, exercise
Yeah.
bulimia, depressed. So they tell me because they feel comfortable talking to me because I've been through it and I share
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
so sometimes like you think when you go to a therapist and they have like a clipboard and they're like, you're like, this person has no idea what it's like to have an eating disorder. But when I shared it, I'm like a safe place
Right.
for people to come. And I have this community now of like supporting all these women that like had never even said it out loud because you weren't supposed to. Like everybody
Yeah.
had to act like everything. And in high school, I was prom queen and homecoming queen. And I had to like, if anybody knew exactly like what was actually happening on the inside, I felt like I
Mm.
had to uphold that, like, oh no,
Perfection,
everything's
that perfect
perfect.
image. Yeah.
Yes, everything's fine. And I was a hot mess, like trying to uphold this like perfection that
Mm.
I did not see at all in myself. And then
Yeah.
losing my identity, like sophomore year in college, just everything went down. There was a time when I was working in DC where I would come home on Friday after work and I lived in a studio apartment that is like the size of my closet right now, like literally. And I wouldn't come out of that little room until Monday morning when it was time to go back to work. Just
Yeah.
like in this little depressed state for days
Yeah.
by myself. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to talk to anybody. And anybody that's feeling like that now, you can come out of it. And I get it. And I want to give hope to somebody else. It's like, I found a whole nother life on the other side.
Yeah. So, two questions out of that. One is for the listener that maybe knows somebody that is struggling with some sort of eating disorder. What would you say to them to, what's a good way to help somebody in their life that they see is struggling through this?
It's so hard because when I was in it, like I would have been so defensive. And I
Yeah.
think about it now, like if somebody would have confronted me, um, there's no way I would have admitted it. Like, and I knew I needed help, but it was like the shame of having to admit it, then everybody would know. Um, I would say, well, for a person that's listening, that if it's you that's struggling, put the shame aside and get help. And you don't have to get help publicly, but if there is someone that can help you through this and get you past it now versus going 10 more years like I did, if I had just gone to treatment, I would not have, I mean, I would have had my life back. I would have had my 20s back, but I
Yeah.
held on to it for so long only because of the shame of not wanting people to know that I was struggling. There are people that are like, go to school to help you with this and it's available to you and you can put it behind you and move on. There's no
Mhm.
shame in it. Like me too. I know it, trust me, I can't even tell you how many people DM me on a daily basis. You're not alone. Everybody's dealt with something like this. Nip it in the bud now so you don't have another 10 years like I did. And if
Yeah.
there's somebody that I always say like my book, it's two people. I had a book signing this weekend and two moms like had broken down and they're like, my daughter's so skinny. And I was like, kind of what I said to you. I was like, she's going to get defensive. So I wouldn't come in and saying like, I know something's wrong, but I was like, why don't you say like, you met me tonight, like you met this girl and on the front, it's like squats and margaritas and just like have the book there. And
Yeah.
like, don't say I got this for you
Yeah.
on eating disorder recovery, but it's like share my story, but not in a like obvious way because, and
Yeah.
maybe somebody else would be more open to it, but what you don't want is for them to shut you off because they're
Mhm.
defensive. So
Mhm.
it's like a tricky way of like, maybe not, don't diagnose them, but
Yeah.
just letting you know I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you may not know what's going on. Like when I was bulimic, I was the heaviest I ever was in my life. And so
Mm.
nobody was thinking eating disorder. Like
Mm,
bulimia for me made me puffy and bloated because you throw all your hormones off. So I
okay.
think like people were like, they didn't know what, they knew something was wrong, but nobody was like, do you need help for an eating disorder? So you
Right.
don't assume that you know what's going on with
Hmm.
somebody else. Definitely don't diagnose them. Don't tell them what you think is going
Right.
on.
Yeah.
But just so that you're there for them and kind of maybe let them, knowing that you're open to talking to them, let them come to you on
Yeah.
their time.
Yeah. That's good. So what about the person that's listening that maybe, has come to grips with, their eating disorder and they're ready to get that help? During your healing time, was there setbacks or were there things that you did or tools that you had that really helped you break all the way through and get over that eating disorder?
Yeah. So for me, and I'm not an eating disorder professional. Um, I get triggered now with the calories everywhere. I'm
Yeah.
sure that it helps people, but like
Mm,
on menus, I can't, it makes me crazy because like I finally like taught myself to just eat what I want, listen to my hunger cues and don't look at the calories. And now it's like, if I see something and it's like 1,000 calories, I start to go into my head again. So I have
such a good
triggers.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do we need, but I guess I was talking to somebody, she's a nutritionist. She's like, so people can make smart decisions. But I'm like, people that have dealt with body image and coming out of eating disorders and the
Yeah.
calories right there in your face, it's not
Yeah.
like you can look it up, like they're right there. That
Yeah.
is a trigger for me. So I try to never look, I never look at the back to see how many calories. It's like right now I eat what I want to eat. I honor my hunger cues, but there are
Mhm.
two parts of it. It's eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're satisfied, not
Yeah.
full. And honestly, I will never let myself get full again because I don't even want to even think about that or be triggered at that fullness that I used to deal with. So I have changed the way that I live. I used to do like it's not time for lunch yet. So I would like be hungry, but I want to save my calories for lunch. So I wouldn't eat and then
Yeah.
I'd wait for lunch and eat a bigger lunch. Now I eat pretty much like all day. I honor my hunger cues. I'm not eating that much at each meal,
Mhm.
but like
Mhm.
probably the same amount of food, but at the end of the day. And I always tell my fish taco story. This is how I live now. I feel like it paints the picture. When I was in my mess, I would order fish tacos, but no cheese, no sour cream, guacamole on the side. They give you four. It's essentially a piece of fish in a tortilla. I would eat
Mhm.
all four because I would say to myself, it's fat free. I would leave the restaurant completely unfulfilled. Like I was not, what's the word? Unfulfilled.
Not satisfied,
Not
like
to
satiated
completely
or
unsatisfied. I was not satisfied whatsoever, deprived, feeling
yeah.
completely deprived. And I ate these four things. So now I get fish tacos exactly as they're prepared, sour cream, cheese, all the things. I eat one and I take a second. Typically, I'm not going to be satisfied with one. I'll eat another one and then I'm good. I got
Mhm.
fish tacos exactly how they were prepared. I don't feel deprived at all. And I'll
Yeah.
take the other two home. Whereas
Yeah.
before, I was probably eating more, justifying in my head that is fat free and still leaving feeling deprived. When you
Right.
get what you want,
Yeah.
it's almost like you don't even need that much because your brain is satisfied. We're
Yeah.
like, we grew, I feel like we're the same age. Like the Snackwells cookie, like all the low sugar, high protein, in quotes, cookies. I would
Yeah.
eat the whole box because I'm like, oh, they're low fat or they're,
Yeah.
and again, same thing, I feel deprived because they are
Yeah.
bullshit cardboard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I eat a cookie in the
Yeah.
morning and sometimes I don't even eat the whole thing. I'll eat like a half a cookie because I'm
Mhm.
satisfied because I got a
Mhm.
cookie. It's just a
It's so,
shift
it's
in like,
so crazy that our brain is wired like that because back when I was, focused on it, I would deprive myself like for the full week and then Saturday night I'd get
yep,
my pizza and I would
yep,
eat that whole freaking pizza, man.
yep.
And now if I get a pizza ordered to my house, I have like one, maybe two pieces and I'm good. Like I don't feel
Yes.
like I need to like go all the way in because
It's
I'm
not
not going to get it
enticing.
again for
Yes.
the next week. And so, you know, I, I share the same philosophy as you is like if I'm feeling it, like I really like do tune into like, okay, are you just really hungry right now, Morgan? Do you really need that type of food or, do you want it? And sometimes it's
Yes.
yes. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? Instead of ordering this DoorDash, why don't I just go make something that I've got meal prepped and then see how I feel, you know? And
Yeah.
so there's little
You're
things that you can do like that to just really get in tune with your body and what it needs.
you're mindful. And that's so true. Like that restrictive mindset. Like I would eat clean during the week and I wouldn't drink. And then you go on a bender on Saturday because it's your drinking day. So you have to drink all the drinks. Then you're hungover on Sunday and you eat like shit on Sunday. If you just
and then you're
allow
guilty
it.
Monday morning.
Yes. It's not as, take it off the pedestal. It's not off limit. Like, oh my God, wine. It's wine. I can have wine open in my fridge and not feel like, oh, I got to finish it because tomorrow's not a drinking day. Like I had so many rules, and it was like, sometimes I would drink on Saturday and I didn't even want it, but it was my drinking day. It's like, listen to what you want. And now I can have a glass of wine and I'm not tempted to have 7 on a Saturday night. And when it was off limits, that's all I wanted. So it's like nothing is off limits. You can have it if you want. And it's worked for me. Like your brain is satisfied because you get the thing and you don't even need that much of it. And it's like, now I enjoy my life. I eat what I want and I'm not miserable. And now I found the physical ideal where when all I did was try for the physical ideal, I was miserable and I weighed 20 pounds more.
Wow. Well, I want to shift a little bit because you and I both have kids, and I'd love to hear, you know, being a mom of 2, I'm a mom of 3. I have a daughter and 2 sons, and I want to make sure I'm doing all the right things to support, you know, especially my daughter and her body image as she grows up, because the reality is they're going to be consumed with so much, just like we were, right? We were consumed with the Cosmopolitan magazines and you know, my mom stepped on a scale every morning. She did weight watch. She was always on a diet.
Yes.
And so, you know, you don't realize it at the time, but that did have an impact in, you know, what I went through. And my mom didn't know any better, but it's like, okay, now I know better. So what are the things that I need to make sure I'm doing to support healthy body image? And so I'd love to just hear how you've navigated that now as a mom of 2.
Well, I have a son and a daughter, and my life's mission is for my daughter to not struggle like I did. And like you said, we had Cosmopolitan, we had all those airbrushed thin models at the checkout counter, but we didn't even have social media. Can you imagine?
I know.
Like I struggled like that with no social media. It's so scary. So my mom's same. She was always on a diet. It would be like, I look so fat. And not that I mean, that's just, you know, how we grew up and how she lived. And that's what I saw. And there's 2 parts to eating disorders. It can be hereditary and have to be genetically predisposed to it, like your personality. So it's not saying that if you talk like that, you're going to give your daughter an eating disorder. But if she's genetically predisposed to it and you talk like that, then you can. So it's like, no scale in the house. I have just learned this. Like I would always be like, you look so beautiful today, or you look so pretty. Stop making the compliments physical. So now I will take a second and be like, you are so kind, or you are so smart. And not, it's not about the physical. Like, don't make it sound, I never talk to myself like bad in front of her. And not even just in front of her. Like I found a place of self-love. Like I've had 2 babies with this body and I'm happy where I'm at now. So I don't have to worry about saying something in front of her. But if somebody is struggling with negative self-talk and you don't want to do that in front of your kids, I think Kylie Jenner said this is where I got it from. She has a picture of herself when she was like 3 on her bathroom mirror. And she's like, every time I go there, I look at it and I think like I'm talking to this little girl. And it's like, if you think of yourself as your daughter or as like this little girl, like you would protect that little girl. You would never let anybody talk to her that way. So it's like when you start doing that to yourself, like you're talking to little you. That was a tip that helped me. But no scale, and compliment non-physical attributes of your daughter.
Yeah. And what about things with like food, or, I mean, you said, how old are your kids? 4 and
6.5 and 4.
6 and 4. Okay. So is your daughter the 6-year-old?
Yes.
So I'm learning, like, now she's coming home from school and like comparing herself. Like it's starting, already, you know, and or, you know, they're learning about healthy food, and like, it's such a balance because you want them to learn about healthy food, but you also don't want to associate it to body image. And, so I've been really intentional about like, okay, well, these foods are going to make you feel stronger, and these foods are going to give you more energy, and, you know, and starting to associate the foods with like the feelings and not the looks is another tip that I've used with my 6, and I mean, really Maxwell too, because he's coming up on that. Of course, they're
Hmm.
going to eat sugar all day if they wanted to. And as a parent, you can't just let them eat what you want. You still have to teach them the healthy, boundaries of a balanced diet. But
That's
um,
my daughter's love language. Like snacks and treats.
mhm.
If
Yeah,
you want to punish her, it's like no snack. And she's like,
yeah,
no. I mean, falls on the ground. So that is what if she does something like good job reading or good job with your handwriting, can I get a
yeah,
treat?
yeah,
Immediately, it's like, can I get a treat? And I'm trying to like make non-food rewards. I'll catch myself. I just stopped doing the clean plate, like clean your
yeah,
plate.
yep,
Make them
yep.
eat when they're not listening. I'm tell moms, listen to your hunger cues. And I'm telling my kid, I want a happy
Eat everything.
plate.
Yeah,
Yeah, to get a treat. It was like if you're stuffed, you still have to eat everything on your plate to get a dessert. And it's
yeah,
ridiculous. And that's just how I was raised too. You had to clean your plate.
yeah,
And so now I say, is your tummy full? Do you feel full? And so my son, he's 4, but he'll be like, Mom, I'm feeling full. And I'm like, well, then we don't have to eat anymore. But my daughter will finish just to get the treat. Like she'll
hmm,
eat to the
hmm,
point of fullness. And I'm trying to get her off the food rewards because that is
yeah,
her love language. That is how it's like, do you want to go pick something out at the store or something and not make it food a reward?
right,
Food is
right.
food. Food is fuel. You shouldn't look at it as a punishment, a reward.
Or
And for
reward,
so
yeah,
many years, I did.
yeah, yeah. When you had babies and went through like pregnancy and postpartum, I just love to hear like, did any of those body image issues come back up? Because I'm sure there may be women that are either afraid of that happening, once they've worked so hard to like get that body image. And so anything that you would share on that?
It didn't. And I was so great. I worried about it. I wrote
Yeah.
that in my book. Like I was so worried when I got pregnant with my daughter that it was all going to come back up. No, it was just like when I was a mom, like when I was pregnant, just cared about the baby and keeping that baby safe. And I actually, I kind of found my mojo again in like the fitness arena right after I had my daughter. And I was frustrated. I wasn't like, I don't know, I gained like 20 pounds. I didn't gain a lot with my first daughter, but I couldn't lose it because my husband was coaching college football in San Diego and I didn't know anybody. There was no burn boot camp and I had nobody to watch her.
Mm.
So I ended up like, I found this gym where this girl was sitting outside and she was saying she was a nanny and she was on her break. So I made it so that I would take classes on her break. So I
Wow.
would roll my daughter up. She would go take her lunch and walk around downtown La Jolla while I took my class. And then I'd come back and go out. I was 6 months postpartum and
Hmm.
my gym had this pop-up fitness challenge. And for me, like those kind of things have to be a pop-up because if I knew like on Friday there was going to be this fitness challenge, like I wouldn't sleep and I'm just like obsessive. But they were like 1 mile run, fastest mile in the gym. And I'm 6 months postpartum, but I was like, I have to win. Like I knew they were going to put the names up on the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
And I ran that mile faster than anyone else in the gym that day. And I peed my pants. I had zero business running that fast, but it
Yeah.
didn't even matter. Like I was like, I had to. And then I was like, if I just ran this mile faster than anybody that took class today, after just having a baby, what
Hmm.
can my body do? And it was like
Yeah.
that was a light bulb moment. Like I started lifting with women that were lifting heavier than me, the moms, like I had no excuse. And I
Hmm.
trained with girls that just were better than me and it pushed my body to another level. But it was like, I had to have that moment where it was like my inner athlete came back and it was honestly like right after pregnancy. Like I was 6 months postpartum when I kind of got it back. And then I got pregnant with my son and I was 38. So no, sorry, I was 36 and I was just, geriatric pregnancy. I was being careful. So I didn't even like run a step with him, but my figure came right back after
Yeah.
I had him. And so I'd say I've been able to maintain this 20-pound weight loss, living life with balance, even through 2 pregnancies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cause it's not
Because
just
you
like
took
that.
the stress off yourself too, like you
We haven't
just,
even gotten into that. Yes, the
yeah.
stress. When you
Yeah.
live in a constant state of stress, pulling up menus before you go to a restaurant. I would book a hotel, but made sure they had a gym for a vacation.
Mm.
Like always calculating calories and macros. Your body is living in a constant state of stress and producing cortisol, a stress hormone that makes you hold on to fat. So
Yeah.
everything that you're doing in pursuit of this ideal is working against you. And
Hmm.
when you just calm the F down and
Yep.
you eat what you want and you're mindful, it's easier. It's just that brain switch. It's so
Yeah.
hard to just be like, eat what you want because people are like, they can't trust themselves. But
Hmm.
the way you're living now, if you're frustrated and you're over exercising and under eating and sad because of this lifestyle, like if you just trust, I get it. It's scary to just like be able to say, eat whatever you want and to not do like lifting. We haven't gotten like, I wasn't sweating when I would go to like a lifting class and I didn't feel like I did anything. And it was just this mental thing. I had to burn calories. My body completely changed when I started eating what I want and lifting.
Yep. Yeah.
And women weren't taught that. You're taught like, do your cardio and calories in versus calories out. And
That's why we love Burn Boot Camp, right?
Yes. Seriously. I saw you guys have one in Fayetteville, which is near me.
Yeah.
I saw it the other day.
Yes, you have to check it out. It's newer. So that's probably why you are just now seeing it. So, okay, so you've got a podcast and, I love podcasting. It's been such a great way for me to connect with other women, connect with other, experts, but also just be able to speak to women and to the people that are listening about who I am and what this brand stands for. And, if I can be a source of encouragement for just one person every single day, like I feel like I've succeeded. So I would just love to hear what's been one of your favorite things about the podcast, maybe a favorite episode, a favorite speaker, anything there.
I legit stalked Katie Couric for 1 year and got her.
I'm watching her every morning.
Well, and then, so they're like, she's busy. She can't do it. I got a 18-hour heads up that I was interviewing her and they asked if I would do it live on Instagram. And I'm like, that sounds perfect. Okay. So I was just like shaking, but she is such a professional. She put me at such ease. She called me right before we were about to go live. She's like, Erin, it's Katie. Just want to know, I had to send the questions, but she was just she asked me a couple personal questions, like where I lived and whatever. I didn't think anything of it. And then during the live, she was talking like we knew each other because she was bringing up those things. She was like, well, Erin, this is way before you moved to Atlanta. So you probably weren't here yet. And I'm like, are people think we're
that's awesome. Wow.
She was my guard came down and I felt so calm. And it was one of the best interviews. But it just, those kind of moments where you work hard and I'm like, I never would have been able to talk to this person otherwise if I didn't have this platform. When it finally pays off that you get to talk to them.
Yeah.
That was my favorite interview, but the one I got the most out of, her name is Maggie Nick and she's parenting with perspectacles on Instagram and just so many moments of I was just my mind was blown. We're shaming our kids and we don't know when we're saying, are you kidding me? Or, all these, I'm I say that. I say all these words and she's like, you're parenting with shame. And she kind of reframed how I was like, my daughter is so mean to my son. She's just always agitated. And I try to protect him and I don't want her to feel left out. And she's like, it's like this. Your daughter was your firstborn. She's like, what if your husband brought home a new wife and was like, look at this new wife and how she cleans and she makes great dinners and look at this. And you're like, great. She's like, that's what it feels like for your, and I was like, that's so true. She's like, every time you compliment your son, she's like, awesome. It's not that it's hard. And I was like, yeah. So every time she's acting that way, I was like, if he brought home a new wife and was like, cheer for her. She's a really good cook. And you're like, okay. She just had so many parenting reframes for me.
Yeah. I'll definitely have to check that out because I can use all the advice on parenting with these three children of mine right now.
I don't know how you do that.
They're giving me a run for my money, that's for sure. And I'm like, give me all the tips, please.
You are mompreneur goals, what you have built. And as a mom of three, I mean, that's why I want you on my show because I have problems finding the balance for sure.
Yeah. Well, that word balance, it gets on all of us. So I can't wait to be on your podcast. We'll definitely
I know.
All right. So a couple last questions here before we wrap up. We talk about podcasting, which I think is so cool because it's also very positive messaging, right? You seek it, right? You seek what you want to listen to. You seek the people that you can relate to, and you really align yourself with hearing the right messages. But there is part of social media that can be very distracting. And I find that, even myself, when I'm feeling a certain way, that there's probably something I was seeing or reading on social media that made me feel that way. It triggered me, right? And so, we got to be careful with it. And especially as it's not going away, it's not going away for our children. And so, have you ever felt like, or what are some tips that you do have if you're feeling not very confident because of a social media influence, or, what tips would you give our listeners today to like make sure they do stay very grounded in what the messaging is that they're bringing into their brain?
Yeah, I honestly can say I found a point of like self-love and self-confidence at 40 that's new. And now I tried it when I do feel kind of triggered, like, oh my God, like look at her body,
Mm-hmm.
celebrate her. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, you look like all the fire emojis, that kind of shift, like celebrating other women. If it's triggering to you, you don't need to follow that account. It's
Yeah.
like, if there are
Mm-hmm.
accounts that every day you see these pictures, and for me, I've kind of got my body together now with my body image noise, but for me, it's like I feel like I'm coming up short in the mom world because I can't, like we said, balance all the things, and I feel like I'm not being present enough. So my trigger is like when I see a mom that's like
Yeah.
impeccably dressed and all her kids
Yeah.
match and her house is clean and it's like Happy Monday. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God. It
Yeah.
just starts making me feel bad about myself. So it's like for
Or the
me,
Easter baskets or the
it's like, are you serious right now?
yeah. Yeah.
That makes me, so it's just like, why do
Yeah.
I even, unless I'm trying to book her on a podcast, I don't really need to see that.
Yeah.
It's not inspiring me to have those Easter baskets. It's just making me feel like I'm not leveling up. So
Hmm.
unfollow, like Instagram, go through your accounts and like really, follow your friends, follow the people that inspire you. Like that's what you
Yeah.
should use social media as. And if there's those accounts that are just popping up and triggering you every day, bye. Like
Yeah.
don't follow them.
Absolutely. All right. So on a more serious note, what is your favorite margarita?
Spicy for sure. A
Spicy.
jalapeno margarita. Do you
Okay.
have Matchbox pizza where you guys are? Where are you?
I don't. I'm north of Charlotte. I've
Okay.
heard of it though while I'm traveling, but no, I don't have one near me. So
That's the best spicy margarita I've ever had. It's like a cucumber jalapeno. It not too like I don't like a real sugary or
yeah.
I honestly like sip tequila, so I don't need like that much flavor for margarita, but like a spicy margarita. I used to use it's Tanteo has a jalapeno infused
Mm,
tequila, so it's already in there, and I would mix that with Minute Maid Light or like there's zero sugar and a
yeah.
splash of LaCroix sparkling water, and it tastes like it's a skinny margarita, but it has that heat. It's so easy to make, like 3 ingredients. But yeah, spicy margarita for sure.
Yes, nice. I'm like a skinny. I don't always love spicy. It just kind of depends on my mood, but I
Yeah.
do have a good one that I
Ooh.
made. It's on our YouTube channel, so you have to go check it out. It's with like
Yeah.
just fresh juices. So like
Yeah.
no mix, but and I
Perfect.
always need to have salt on the rim. So
Same.
that's the way
Same.
I like it.
Same.
All right. So last question. Tell me a little bit more about these blue butterflies that I see all over your page. Tell us all about it.
Morgan, it's so crazy. Like the universe, I've not been like a spiritual person until like this year. Like I
Mm,
just started kind of like opening my mind and kind of like noticing things. I started running, or actually I've been like walking a lot without AirPods. So I would just be like in nature, kind of like grounding myself, and it's very new to me. But it's like ever since I started living that way, I noticed more things. And it started when I was 19. I did get a blue butterfly tattoo on my back,
okay.
probably because Britney Spears had a tattoo there, and there was no meaning, but I do have one on my body. So recently, I was speaking at a women's retreat in Nashville, and this woman afterwards comes up to me with this book, and she's like, I mean, there was I don't know, like 50 other women in the room, and she's like, I brought this book. It was so sad. She said, I co-authored it with my daughter who drowned during COVID. And I just
Mm,
like started getting, and I was like, oh my God, I was like holding her. She's like, no, she comes, I wrote it with her. It's like, I'm channeling her. She's like, she comes to me now as a blue butterfly. And I
oh,
was like, and I had a jumpsuit on and I was like trying to like, I was like, no, no, no. And so I opened the back of it and she saw the blue butterfly and she like dropped the book. She's like something, she goes, I brought one copy. And I felt like, and I was like, no, blue butterfly. So it was like that happened. And then like a month later, this blue butterfly, it's like, sounds like downplayed unless you see these videos, people like this beautiful blue butterfly would sit directly outside my front door. and I would come out and it wouldn't go away. It would just kind of stay around me. And it was like every day. And I would expect it. Like I would go peek out and be like, oh, I wonder how long she's been out there. Always blue butterfly. Or if I would go for a walk and it wasn't there, when I'd come back, it would be on my doorstep. And I kept putting it on Instagram and I'm like, what is this? Like, it's back again. And people are like, it's someone from a past life that's trying to tell you something. It was like all these butterflies are transformation, all these like beautiful things. But it got to the point that it was like creeping me out. I was like, oh my God. I was like, God, I see it. I see you, universe, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Yeah. But it was so, people were like, butterflies don't even live that long, like 2 weeks or something. So it's like the fact that it's still coming back. And I was like, I see it, but I don't know what to do with it. So, I don't want to even say fast forward. Like as this was happening, I was talking, I hired a business coach to help me with a nonprofit, and I'm actually working on a TED Talk. And she's like, your nonprofit, like we need to get it up and running. And I wanted to create a safe space for teen girls to come and like retreats where like women who have been through the things could come back and be mentors. And it's not like going to therapy where someone's like judging you with a clipboard, but it's like, me too. I've been through this. It's just a season, and inspire women, just inspire young girls. And she's like, what do we call it? And in that moment, I was like, Blue Butterfly. Like, so Blue Butterfly Foundation was founded in Georgia a month ago. Wow. And then Morgan, it left. Like as soon as I named it, I never saw it again.
Wow.
And it was like
all down my arms.
I know, me too. It's so, and I'm not, it's the thing, I don't want to keep saying it. Like I'm not that spiritual, but like it was so in your face. Like it would just, you can look on Squats and Margaritas on my Instagram page. I have a whole blue butterfly section on my highlights when it kept coming. And then I was time stamping it because people are like, no way. Like that's the same. I'm like, this is 3 hours later. And then I was like, what does this mean? And as soon as I like got the message, it was like, okay. I never saw it again. And it's like, it was so clear in that moment. I was like, we call it Blue Butterfly. And so now Blue Butterfly Foundation will be mentorship for teen girls. And then my hope is that once you come through the program, you come back as a Blue Butterfly for the next generation, so that even after I'm gone, like this would be my legacy. Like there's always a group of women there for the teen girls that are going through the things. And, I just feel like it's exactly what I'm supposed to do. And God was like, hello, like, and it was insane.
That's amazing. That is so wonderful. I would love to know more and more about that. And if I could ever be a part of it, that is so cool. Good for you. I have a goal to also open up a nonprofit. And so you've definitely
can help you. Yeah. I know I'm like well-versed in it, but I was going to ask you, I would love for you to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
Any inspiring mom, everybody's been through a story, and the women that are willing to share it and just to show like, we get it. Like, it's just a chapter. Like there's so much more and you'll do it too. If you're putting together a nonprofit, like you do all these keyword searches and seeing what teen girls were searching. Like I can't have it, like cutting, like skinny, suicide, like all these. So now it's like when they search those words, Blue Butterfly will populate. And it's like, what is this? And then it's like this, they don't feel like it's like a retreat. They're not feeling like they're going to therapy and they'll see like it's a community. Everybody feels this way. The bully that's being mean to you, it feels just like you. And she's just as vulnerable. And I just want to create this community, and I would love for you to be a part of it. I can't have it. What the girls are searching, I can't have that anymore.
Wow. Well, thank you, Erin. This has been awesome. Guys, you have to go check her out on Instagram, and we will be following along with the Blue Butterfly Foundation, and however we can help raise money. You can count on us, because that is absolutely a mission of Burn, is to just empower women, empower children, families, to make sure that they feel that love and have that support, because I get it. It's just it's scary world out there that they're growing up in. So
yes,
guys, thank you for joining Erin and I today. We're so excited that you were here. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a podcast again. And stay tuned to Erin's podcast, as I will be a guest coming soon. So thank you guys.